It is from inside, from the human heart, that both evil intentions come and conversely, good works are done. There's a story that is not somewhat used to occasionally describe what's going on in today's gospel. It's a little bit of an experiment, animal experiment, so sorry about that. But it has to do with monkeys. So monkeys, a cage, a banana, and a water hose. It goes like this. You put 5 monkeys in a cage. On one end, you put a banana on the other end, right? Eventually, a monkey will go for the banana. Of course. And when a monkey goes for the banana, the researcher has a hose and he squirts the other 4 monkeys that aren't going for the banana. Right? And so you try this again, replace the banana. What happens is the 4 monkeys who don't go for the banana start attacking the monkey that wants to go for the banana because they know they're going to get squirted. They know they're going to get hosed, so to say. Right? So you remove one monkey and you put in a brand new one. Of course, doesn't know anything about this. And he goes for the banana. And the rest of the monkeys start attacking him. No, don't go for the banana. And you go through this a couple of times. And eventually what happens is that you can remove the fire hose. And you take out a monkey and you put in a brand new one. And the brand new one who goes for the banana will still be attacked. If you keep going through this, all of a sudden, none of the monkeys in the cage have ever experienced getting hit by the fire hose. But if a monkey goes for the banana, they still attack each other. They have no idea why anymore. But they still won't let anybody go get the banana. Jesus ends up today in Jerusalem, the center of all religious life in his day. Remember, there aren't, like today, like churches throughout everywhere, or synagogues throughout everywhere. There's just the temple in Jerusalem. That's where all religious life and worship happens and has been happening forever. That's where the priests are. That's where the ritual is. That's where you perform all of the functions that you're supposed to be performing and that you are told you have to perform in order to be faithful. And Jesus comes with his disciples and the Pharisees and the scribes who are the keepers of the ritual. Notice that his people aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Wash their hands and clean the cups in a certain way, and so on and so forth. And they say, why aren't your people doing this? What, are you special? And Jesus says, basically, you can't even remember why we do this anymore. You don't even know why we keep these practices. You can't even remember. Notice he doesn't say these practices are no good. Notice he doesn't say ritual is bad. Notice he doesn't say doing a certain way, doing a certain thing on a regular basis is evil. He says you can't even remember why you do this anymore. A few weeks ago, I had the great pleasure going with a good number of our youth on a civil rights tour of our nation. And it was wonderful. And Debbie Cox, our director of youth ministry, organized and led the trip. And I got to go with her and about 13 of our youth. And we started in Atlanta, and we spent a day there with a great African-American citizen of Atlanta, and he showed us around Atlanta and the wonderful stories and events that happened during the civil rights movement in Atlanta. And then we went to Birmingham, and we got to see the 16th Street Baptist Church, which is a vibrant congregation, but they have this interactive museum in what is our undercroft of their church. That's the church where the 4 girls were killed by a bomb on the Sunday, where the Sunday school lesson was, "Forgive your enemies." And then we went to Selma, Alabama, which is now a very small, pretty much economically depressed town, rural, economically depressed town in Alabama. And we had the great pleasure of going to St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Selma, and we took a tour from a number of the members there, long-term members, and we heard the story of a story that took place in the 60s there. Some of you may have heard the name Jonathan Myrick Daniels, who is now a saint in our church calendar, but in the 60s he was a seminary student in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He heard the call of Martin Luther King Jr. to come to Alabama and stand up for voting rights, so that more and more people were not barred from voting and being able to participate in voting. And of course, as a seminary student, an Episcopal seminary student, he went to church. And he went to church in Selma at St. Paul's Episcopal Church, and he attended rather regularly. And then, but one Sunday he brought his black friends. Now, this could be a church anywhere in our country in the 60s, not just in the South, anywhere in our country in the 60s. It could be relatives of ours who we could say it about relatives of ours, us, people we know in our own lives, our own hearts. So he was turned away at the door, and somebody there had done the history of the actual Sunday where this happened, and they went back in the archives and looked at the order of service. And on that Sunday, just after he was turned away from the door, they sang a hymn. I remember singing it as a kid. It's not in our hymnal anymore. And it goes like, the first stanza goes like this. The imagery is that imagery of Jesus standing at the door and knocking. You know that picture or that image of Jesus standing at the door and knocking? And the hymn says, "O Jesus, thou art standing outside the fast-closed door, in lowly patience waiting, while the world passes o'er. Shame on you, Christian people, who leave him standing there. Shame, thrice shame upon you, who leave him out the door." But Jonathan came back the next Sunday, and the next Sunday, and the next Sunday, which caused the vestry of St. Paul's to get together and say, "This is not okay. Anybody who wants to come to this church ought to be able to come." As it turns out, just a few weeks later, Jonathan was in a different part of Alabama, and when one of his friends, Ruby Sales, was about to be shot, he stood in front of her and took the bullet and was killed. But he was a part of transforming hearts. He was a part of transforming the hearts of the people at St. Paul's, and the hearts of many others. What's in our heart, says Jesus, needs to match what we do. Now, sometimes, as you know, it takes a while for our heart to change. It takes a while for our hearts to learn. It takes a while for our hearts to grow. It takes a while sometimes for our hearts to match up with our brain. What Jesus also suggests today is we're not alone in the transformation of our hearts. God is actually working on us. God is actually working on our hearts. It's almost as if God is like a massage therapist, right? A massage therapist of the heart, constantly working our hearts. You know, if you have a cramp in your lower back, you probably need to go to the massage therapist more than once before it's completely healed, right? So we're not alone as we consider in our own lives how our hearts match or do not match with what we believe, or at least what we are called to as disciples of Jesus. We come to this church each and every week really for a little bit of massage therapy. To hear once again the call of Jesus, that we may have hearts to match his call. Amen.